So, hi everybody. Actually, let me get myself on camera for you. Hi everybody. My name is Nick Rudolph, and I am the Baltimore Regional Director with Maryland Capital Enterprises. And today we're going to talk about the first steps in starting your small business. Now, one thing that's really fun to know is we don't have a ton of people on this call today. So if you have any questions, just feel free to interrupt me. I'll also stop a few times throughout to ask if there are any questions, and then we'll leave some time at the end as well. Um, Having some tech problems. There we go. So, first, a little bit about who we are, Maryland Capital Enterprises. So, we've been around for a long time, since 1998. We started off as a small nonprofit on the Eastern Shore, giving small loans to small businesses in the lower three counties of the lower shore. We grew and eventually became an SBA lender. We were able to do larger loans, but we are a micro lender. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And then in 2012, we hopped over the bridge to the Baltimore area. Currently, we're serving the entire Eastern Shore, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Anne Arundel County, Harford County, and Cecil County. So what do we do? Well, everybody likes to talk about the fact that we do loans, but we also offer free technical assistance, and that can be one-on-one counseling, webinars just like this one, our Women's Business Center conference, in-person classroom sessions, all sorts of different things. So you can learn more about that and more about our offices in both Baltimore and Salisbury at marylandcapital.org and Women's Business Center at marylandcapitalenterprises.org. So, a little bit about the lending, because that's what most folks like to talk to us about. We are an SBA intermediary lender, but that doesn't mean that you get SBA funds when you borrow from us. We get our funds from a number of different government and non-government sources. And if you're approved for a loan, you'll get funding from one of those sources that's backed by the SBA, possibly. Again, remember, we also offer that training of one-on-one technical assistance, whether or not you're applying for a loan. So now let's just get into the first steps for starting a small business. So there's a lot of reasons why people want to start small businesses. You got an idea that you can think makes a lot of money. You can express something that you're passionate about and turn that into a career. Same thing with a hobby, maybe. You're very good at, making some kind of art and you see an ability to make that a career. You get to be your own boss. Eventually, you get to work more flexible hours, and it just helps you develop another career, another skill set. But starting your own business is an exciting and rewarding experience, but it is also a lot of hard work. And there's a few things that are required. Number one, thorough planning. Number two, creativity. And I said again, hard work. So think about your business as a building. If you go to downtown, you'll often see a vacant lot with a fence around it and a picture of a big building that's going to go up. And for months and months and months, you don't see anything going on. What they're doing then is they're doing all the testing, they're doing all the research, they're doing everything to make sure that that building is going to be stable, that it has a strong foundation. And then once it builds all the way up, it becomes, filled very quickly, lively very quickly. Same thing here. The work that you do before you start your business is going to help ensure that your business is a success. So this is what I like to call the scary slide, and it is a little bit. This is true. 30% of new businesses will close within the first 2 years and 80% within the first 10 years. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're closing for bad reasons. Oftentimes people will sell businesses. There are people who are serial entrepreneurs and just want to open up a lot of businesses. Restaurants often do that. They close and open up a new concept. So while it is scary, it's not quite as scary as those numbers are. So now let's talk about questions that you want to ask yourself before starting a business. And instead of just reading through them, I'll talk about it a little bit more generally. So the first thing you really want to ask yourself is, why are you starting this business? So if you are doing it because you want to work less than you are working for somebody else, it might not be a good idea. If it's because it's something that you're passionate about, something that you care about, or something that you're really good at, then that might be a better reason. You want to think about the kind of business you want to start. Are you customer facing? Are you all online? Are you retail? Are you service? You want to talk about who your ideal customer is, and we're going to talk a little bit about that when we discuss business plans. All of these things, your products, your services, what it's going to take to get started, both time and money. Where are you going to be located? Will you have employees? If so, how will you get them and how many do you need? If you're selling things, what are your suppliers? Big time, how much money do you need to get started? You see you need money, you want to talk about, will I get a loan? And if so, where can I get that funding? How long will it take, that pre-business time before you can get your products and services going? Who are your competition? How long is it going to take for you to make a profit? All of these are questions you want to ask yourself. You also want to look about your pricing. Are you going to be, a value proposition, high end or middle of the road? And then you also want to think about the things that are sort of legal necessities. What taxes do you need to pay? What kind of insurance are you required? And then do you want to add to? How do you stay in good standing with the state of Maryland? How are you going to manage that business? And then how are you going to let folks know about your business? So there are 10 steps, and they don't always go in this order, but they are very important. So the first thing you are already doing, and congratulations, get business assistance and training. We live in an area where there's more small business assistance and training than anywhere else in the country. So take advantage of it. Talk to us, talk to other organizations, talk to your county, talk to your city. You're going to need to write a business plan, and every small business is going to have a thorough business plan, not just to get fundings, but so you can understand, what it's going to take to run that business. The good thing is we're able to help you develop that. You want to understand your employer responsibilities. And what that means really is if you're going to hire folks, it's not just hiring folks and training them. There's certain insurances and taxes you need to pay, and there's certain things that you need to make sure you are up to standard on. Your business location, are you home-based or are you a brick and mortar? Are you just an online business? You want to determine your legal structure. LLCs offer a little bit of protection for you as an individual, but sometimes a corporation is better, and that's a one-on-one conversation to figure out what's best for your business. Then you want to start doing your registration. You want to register your business, and you want to think about, do you want to have one business name, an LLC that has got umbrellas, different doing business ases? So, it could be Nick Corp, and then I've got Nick's Dill Pickles and Nick's Soda Canning underneath of that. You also need to register for your state and local taxes. Once you get that IRS number, you have to go to your state and you go to ready.gov, and they'll walk you right through it. You want to get any licenses and permits, and that's going to be different for each county and for each city. You want to think about your financing, which is something that we might be able to help you out for. And then you want to develop your marketing plan. And that's much more than just how you're going to advertise. It's really about how you're going to fit into the economic landscape, who your customers are going to be, who your competition is, and how you're going to survive there. So before I go into a little bit more detail, are there any questions? All right, so now transitioning into understanding your market. So the reason why you want to do this is, number one, it makes it a little bit less risky. It lets you understand whether or not there's room for the business that you have right now in your current market. You can also kind of see trends that might be coming up so that you can get ahead of them. It identifies sales opportunities. So if you understand your market and you're studying your market, you might find a customer base that you'd never thought of. And then it's really important when you are in your business plan and you're talking about your market section growing, cite some data that shows that it either has been growing or is expected to grow. And the way you do that is you can do that through a number of ways. An easy internet search, you'll be looking for things like industry publications or financial publications. Government websites will often have some information on them, as well as your local chamber of commerce or trade organizations. And remember, when you're thinking about, who might be your competitor, think local, regional, and national. If you're opening up a bookstore, you might want to talk about your two bookstores that are in your same city, and maybe Amazon.com is another competitor, because they are a place where folks can go buy those books. So there are advantages and disadvantages to starting a new business. We'll go through a few of them right now. The pro is, you get to be your own boss. It's your vision. It's your dream. You get to go out there and say, this is my small business. Number two, if you're the boss, you can't be fired. Number three, your income is determined by your own efforts. So you can really, if you're working hard, get more money in. You're doing something you love. And, one thing that a lot of people start businesses for too is to create jobs in their community or their families. It helps provide not only money for your household, but for your entire community. Now, there are some cons, especially when you're starting off this endeavor. You're going to be working a lot of long hours. There is, of course, always financial risk, even if you're an LLC. You'll have to figure out when you're going to start making money and you can pay yourself, because there might be a significant amount of time where you're not able to take income out of your business. Are you able to keep a part-time or full-time job during that time period? You might need some additional education and training and even certifications for certain businesses. You might not be able to take vacations for a while. You might have not a lot of time for yourself. And even though you are the boss and you own the business, all of your customers and sometimes even your employees are bosses as well. Now, there are some special business types that are eligible for some additional resources. Grants is what most people want to talk about. There are not a ton of small business grants right now, but if you're in one of these business enterprises, or if you're opening up a retail location in a historic main street or downtown, your city or county might have what's called a facade improvement grant that can pay for a portion of your signage, your windows, your security cameras, your ADA accessibility on the outside, and things like that. So I want to stop again for just a moment. Are there any questions? All right.
I have a question.
Sure.
So, how do you decide? Sorry, I'm trying to turn on my camera. How do you decide if it's better to have your business locally or national? Because, I'm in Salisbury and it's a small town. So how do you decide that?
So yeah, so that's definitely a each business is going to be different with that. But the questions you want to ask yourself is, is your product and service something that, you can conceivably, get to a larger audience? If you're baking in your house, it might be a little bit more difficult. But if you're offering consulting services, you can do things virtually. You also want to understand your market. So if you do a market study, you can figure out if there is enough business where you are to take care of, all of your needs, or if you really need to look at how you're going to expand that. And that's something that if you contact us, we can walk you through one-on-one.
Okay.
All righty. Any other questions? All righty. We will keep on going. So, what are the keys to success to start the business? The first thing is those skills. So you want to have experience in your industry, and that can be through actual job experience, or it can be through education. And if you don't have that experience, do you have a mentor that's going to help you start that up? Somebody who's going to be your backer and your teacher as you're growing your business. You want to think about, what kind of business management experience you have. It doesn't necessarily need to be in your industry. If you were a shift leader at your local Burger King, you've got some management experience, and that's something you can build on. You also need to work on your creativity. You need to be able to recognize, improvise, and solve problems. We're going to plan. We're going to try to figure out every single problem, and something else is going to pop up. And if we're creative and if we're flexible, if we can improvise, we can address those problems. And then again, if there are more skills that you need, are you able to get those through education or a mentor? So now we're going to talk about a checklist of some sort of more legal requirements that are needed to start a small business. So you want to check with your county, and if you've got a city, your local zoning requirements. There are places where businesses are and are not allowed, and sometimes that's broken out by business type. You also want to see what type of licensing you're doing. If you're working in a medical field, working with children, working with food, things like that, you're going to need something beyond just your basic business license. And you want to make sure you've got those all set up before you open. I subscribe to the Baltimore City Health Department's page. They close down many restaurants every day just because they don't have their licenses. It has nothing to do with sanitary conditions. Your business is going to need insurance. And the next slide, we're going to talk about, your bail team with your bankers and some other folks. You're also going to want to analyze your credit, especially as you're starting a small business. Any loan you're going to get is going to be personally guaranteed, which means they're going to be looking at your personal credit. Oftentimes, even if the business is existing, the personal credit is much more important than the business credit. And then you're going to want to have your bail team. So your bail team, this is a relatively new concept that I just absolutely love. That's your banker. And what that means is you want to develop a relationship with your banker early. You want to know your banker before you need any money. So even if you're just in I'm thinking about starting a small business, but it might be a few more years before we can get there, go talk to your local branch manager, find your business banker, Talk to them about what you want to do. They might have some free resources for you. They'll also know you, and they'll be a better advocate for you when you are applying for that loan. With your banker, you want to be honest and transparent about everything. If you've had a bankruptcy, some missed payments, let them know that because they can help you mitigate that. And again, ask about the small business education provided. A lot of banks do give that for free. You're going to need an accountant. That doesn't mean you need to have one on staff, but you're going to want to have a connection to one because they're going to ensure that you are in compliance with state and federal laws, which makes you eligible for our financial services. And so you'll make sure those deadlines aren't missed because those will get you fines from the city or the state. And it'll also provide some financial protection if you're audited. Number one, they're just going to be better at it than you. And number two, they'll take, some of the responsibility for it. An insurance agent. It doesn't matter what kind of business you have, you are definitely going to need to have insurance. So you want to talk to your agent about what is required, and then you might be wanting to add a few things if you feel like there might be some risk involved with your business. Again, food, kids, medical, things like where you're driving, there's going to be higher insurance. And then a lawyer. So it doesn't mean you need to have a lawyer on retainer, but know some small businesses lawyers that can help you out. Let them know about your business, understand what their costs are so that you can be saving a reserve just in case you need it. So before I go on to the sort of development of the business plan and what you will need then to go ask for financing, are there any questions about the steps for starting the business or anything like that? All right. We're going to go right into the business plan. So the first thing is, what should a business plan contain? And a business plan has many audiences. So you really want it to be the blueprint for your business. It's something that you can use as you're starting your business to guide you. You can use it as your business is growing to see if you're, making targets or if you want to maybe change your plan a little bit. Of course, it's for the money. So, it really is everything about your business. And when you're considering your audience, that means you might want to change your business plan depending on who's reading it. If you're applying for a grant, you might want to talk about hiring from within the community, hiring returning citizens, things that you do for the community. If you're applying for a loan, you still want that in your business plan, but you really want to focus more on, are you going to be able to pay back that loan? Because the bank is most concerned with getting the money back for their shareholders. So I'm now going to quickly go through the different parts of a business plan. Now, I will say that this is sort of a template that we use. Oftentimes, you might be able to tell your story better in a different order, but these are sort of the key things that we want to see in a business plan so that we understand your business and we understand that you understand your business. So the first part is your executive summary, and that is something that is actually often written last. So what you're doing here is the opening of your presentation. I often tell folks a great way to start a business plan is something like, Nick's Dill Pickles LLC is a wholesale pickling operation out of Baltimore City owned by Nick Rudolph. We are looking for a loan of $15,000 to buy additional pickling equipment so that we can go into more wholesaling. If that's your first couple of sentences, the folks who are reading your business plan are going to understand who you are, what you do, what you're looking for, and why. Then you're going to want to go into a little bit more about your business. Talk a little bit about what it does and what brought you to open that business. Are you opening an assisted living facility because you saw the way some of your relatives were treated and you want to make sure that there's a better place for folks out there? Are you starting a restaurant because you went to culinary school and you're ready to take that dive? You want to talk about those things. Then again, you're going to want to make that ask at the end of the executive summary again with a little bit more detail about what you're going to do with the funding if that's what this business plan or is going for a loan. The next section is your marketing plan. This is usually the largest section of your business plan. So what you're looking here is to describe your industry. So not just what you're doing, but what is your place in the market? This is where you're going to be showing that research that you're citing about your market growing or expected to grow and about room for it in your local market. You're also going to want to explain your costs and your pricing policy. So, why are you setting it at the high end or the low end or the medium? Are you doing this to attract customers? Or are you doing it because it's industry standard. There's different reasons why you might have different pricing policies. You also want to look at who your target customer is, and this is really important. Even though most businesses can serve most people, you really want to drill down on who your biggest customer is, who you're going to try to get in that door. So if you're a salon opening up in Baltimore or something like that, you might say, look, we're able to cut anybody's hair, but we're really going to focus on, African American women aged 25 to 54 who make $150,000 a year because we're offering high-end services. So that's the type of thing that you want to think about when you're drilling down on your customer base. Same thing with your competition. You want to list them, you want to talk a little bit about what they do well, and then you want to explain what your special sauce is. How are you going to be able to compete in the market with those folks? Is it pricing? Is it a special service? Is it certain connections? What is it that is your special sauce? Then you want to talk about your marketing. How are you going to get the word out? And that doesn't mean just saying, hey, I'm going to do a social media campaign. Talk in detail about how you're going to do that, how you're going to roll it out. Are you going to start, off by spending more money and have it trickle down, or is it going to be more of, same amount every month? And when we'll talk about cash flows in a moment, but that's when we can start figuring out when there is, budget to be doing those things. The next section is your organization and operations. And this is the section where you're talking about how your business is going to operate. So again, discuss if it's an LLC or an S Corp or a C Corp. You want to talk about the management structure. Are you the sole person in the business? Is your family running it, or are you going to have employees running the business? You also want to talk about, your operations, your hours. If you're brick and mortar, when can folks come into your store? If you're not, when are you available by phone or for customer service? Who is going to handle that customer service? You also want to describe your quality control and your contingency plans. What if something goes wrong? How are you going to deal with that? Or what if you get sick and you're unable to work for a couple of months? How is your business going to handle that? And then, we are on the end of COVID-19, but, just thinking about what happens if a customer, if you're, face to face, or an employee, tests positive, how are you going to let folks know? The last part is the financial plan. So this might look different for a startup or for an existing business that's looking to grow. So if it's a startup, you're going to want to talk about what your startup costs are, where your break-even points are, and why your startup costs are important. Why are you buying all of this equipment now? Do you really need all of this to start your business, or is this something you can phase in? How much have you put in skin in the game? That can be money, that can be time, that can be products. And then how much do you need to borrow to start your business? You'll also want to estimate your income and expenses as part of your cash flow. We require a 2-year monthly cash flow that can be in your financial plan or a separate document. Speaking of which, we're going to go right into the cash flows from here. But before I do that, are there any questions on the business plan? Nope. All righty. So the first question are, what are cash flows and why do we need them? So basic way to say that is you're looking at to see how much money is coming in and then how much money is flowing out in expenses. So if you're bringing in $5 million a month, but it's costing your business $6 million a month to do business, even though you're bringing in all that money, you don't have a positive cash flow. And this is a document that's going to help you estimate and figure that out. So why do we need them? If you're applying for money and for loans, and for grants, you're going to need some cash flows. They're going to want to see that you know where you're headed, and that you have realistic expectations. It's a great planning tool. It helps you sort of realize before you start your business where your money is going to be going and, things that you want to be looking for, targets to hit. Again, like I said in the last slide, it shows the difference between money coming in and profit. It's just good governance. You want to have a lot of good governance, eyes on your books, so that you can make sure that you're where you need to be, so that you can pay your bills, pay your employees, and pay yourself. And then it shows you, like I said, when you can start taking an owner's draw and how much of that is, when you can quit that full-time job and go to your business full-time. So you'll see here on the right a pretty scary looking form with a lot of boxes on it. The truth of the matter is it's a lot simpler than it looks, and it's something that we're happy to do one-on-one with you for your business. It's important to remember first that this is a living document. Um, what's great about this is that it's going to change over the life of your business because your business is going to evolve and change. These projections are not only going to be 100% not accurate, most of the cells will probably be different than what you put on here, and that's okay. What you want to do is be realistic on your expectations. You know you're going to make $2 billion in the first year, but if you put that in your cash flows, that's probably going to scare away any lenders. So, we had a story about a person who made handmade wedding invitations. They averaged $1,000 a wedding. I was a one-person shop, and they said, well, we got 10,000 weddings a year in Maryland, so I'm going to make $10 million. Well, of course, not everybody's going to hire that person. A one-person shop can't do 10,000 weddings. Not everybody gets wedding invitations. Not everybody gets wedding invitations that cost $1,000. So, they were able to show that they were able to make the amount of money they needed to in, 5 or 10 a month. And then if they do more than that, then that's just gravy. That's good for them. You want to include as many income streams. Oh, did I hear somebody? Okay. You want to include as many income streams and expenses as possible. You want to get this as detailed so that it can be as useful as possible for you. So you want to be breaking up things as much as possible. Let's say that you're opening a restaurant. You might break it out dine-in, catering, and carry-out, or you might break it out, alcohol, food, and merchandise. So if you think your restaurant was going to do 70% food and 30% alcohol, and you're looking at your books, and after 4 or 5 months, you notice that it's 50-50, you can then make a decision and say, do I want to see that my alcohol program is doing really well and focus on that? Or is it that the food program is not doing well and we need to focus on that? Same thing with expenses. The more you can break it up, the more places you can find where you can maybe do some savings. You also want to think about, do your sales change month to month depending on the season? If you're a landscaper, it probably will. There are certain other jobs where it just isn't, certain consulting jobs where you just are making the same amount every month. You want to include your loan as income and your loan payments as expenses. A lot of folks forget to do that, so I like to say that a couple of times. In your cash flows that you're showing to somebody that you are going to be borrowing from, talk about other financing. If you've got a loan somewhere else, put it on the cash flows because if they're not on there, we're going to find out about it, and that's going to make it harder to get a loan. And then, of course, are you paying yourself? We are a nonprofit. We want to make sure that you've got a good quality of life. So we want to make sure that you're making enough money that you can take care of your own personal needs. So, are there any questions on cash flows before I go into how our loans work and how to apply for our loans? Nope. Okay. So for more detail on business plans and cash flows, on the 28th, we'll be doing another webinar that's specifically on those. So now we're going to talk about our current loans. So these are our general loans, our small business loans. If your business has been around for 2 years or less, you're eligible for $5,000 to $35,000. If you've been around for 2 years or more, that can go up to $150,000. The terms are going to be dependent on the size of the loan. Everything over 100,000 is probably going to be 10 years. 50,000 might be 5 or 6 years. Our interest rates are currently set at 6 to 12%. Generally we're right in the middle there. But it's also going to be based on your credit, your business, and things like that. We do require collateral for the business. We'd like it to be 100%, but we can be somewhat flexible on collateral. Of course, real estate is the best kind of collateral that we can have. All owners who own 20% or more of the business are going to have to personally guarantee the loan. It's very important. I'm going to say it again. Anybody who owns 20% or more of the business is going to have to personally guarantee the loan. Also, if you've got an ownership structure where there are, enough people that nobody owns 20%, we're going to want to see 3 or 4 people personally guarantee that loan. The application fee, which is due up front, is $100 plus $25 per owner. So if it's one owner, it's $125. If it's 3, it's $175. Thinking positive, if you're approved for the loan, there are going to be some closing costs. There's the closing fee, there's a legal reserve fee. Basically, we'll pay it out of the loan proceeds. A $50,000 loan will probably go out at just north of 48. We are going to be taking automatic payments from your checking account for these loan payments. So it's important to understand that. It's not that you're making a payment with us. It's going to be automatically debited from your account, which means that if you know you're not able to make that payment a week or so ahead of time, you can let us know and we can work on, interest only or restructuring the loan or whatever it is to help you not miss a payment. On the other side, if you're doing great, if you get that big government contract and you've got a pile of money, as long as your loan is 30 days old, we do not have a prepayment penalty. You can pay exactly the principal that you owe on that day. We're going to visit your business twice a year. It could be virtual or in person. We're going to want to talk about how you're doing financially, about how the business is going, and then we'll let you know about any resources that are coming down the road that might be good for you. So number one question we often get asked is my business eligible and what can I do with the funding? So we are able to fund most small businesses in Maryland. There are a few types that we are unable to. Those are the traditional sin industry, things like adult bookstores, 100% liquor, things like that. We are able to work in the cannabis industry. As far as investing, like real estate investing, we are not able to do things like purchase the property, rehab the property, pay the workers for the property. But if you're building out your own office, you need some big tools that are reusable or a truck or something like that, that's somewhere we'll be able to help you out. Other than that, any business-related expense from build out, furniture, equipment, salaries, utilities, things like that. The one thing that it won't cover though is if you're a home-based business, we can't pay your rent, mortgage, or utilities. We also have a second kind of loan, which is our credit builder loan. This is a smaller loan, $500 to $5,000. It usually has a 2-year term. And this is for folks who either have, not great or no credit at all, who want to build their credit while they're building their business. It's for folks who just are, dipping their toe into entrepreneurship. So if you are, have a hobby that you say, hey, you know what? I've been fixing my friend's cell phone screens because it's fun for me. I might be able to make some money doing this if I can get the right supplies, but I don't need $35,000. This might be the loan for you. Or if you have an existing business and there's a quick, an emergency, this is a quicker turnaround than our normal loans. So, if a root grows through a pipe and it needs to be fixed and you need $5,000 for that, that's something where this can help as well. It is a straight 9% interest rate. Collateral is not required, but it is greatly encouraged. Everything else is the same except for the application fees, which is a smaller application fee and a smaller closing cost at $75. Same uses, same business types, same no penalty and all of that fun stuff. So how do you get that great money to help start or grow your business? So your applications are reviewed by a community of local volunteers. They're bankers, they're from the community, they're business leaders, they're nonprofit leaders. They understand the small business economy of the area. And what they're going to be looking for are these things: a thorough business plan that shows you have a clearly established business idea. That doesn't mean that it needs to be a 30, 50-page plan. It just needs to be able to, let us know everything that we need to know. And that's, again, something we can help you build. We're going to want to see your experience in the field or how you're going to get that mentorship. We're going to want to see the strength and the realisticness of your cash flow. The strength of your collateral is important. If you have a wholly owned home, that's really strong collateral. Reasonable credit. So we don't necessarily have a minimum credit score. What we're looking at is, the last 12 to 24 months, have there been missed payments? Are there collections? Things like that. There are a few disqualifiers. That is, if you've had a bankruptcy discharged in the last 24 months, or if you have a tax debt without a payment plan, you are ineligible to receive one of our loans. We're also looking for the general economic conditions for the venture. Is this the right time to be opening up this business? And that could be either general economy reasons, or it could be, there's 7 pizza places on this 2-block stretch. You want to open up a pizza place on it. How are you going to be able to compete with those folks? Is this the right conditions for your business to start? And then, of course, your ability to repay the loan. In the unfortunate event that your business is not successful, are you able to get back into the workforce and pay off that loan? So the application documents that we're looking for, we do them all online. The first is the MCE intake form. If you go to our website, marylandcapital.org, there's a Get Started button in the top right-hand corner. That's our intake form. You fill that out. Somebody will get in touch with you within 3 business days to start planning how we're going to help you out. Then there's your business loan application. So that's either the regular one or the credit builder. On that, that's where you're going to be uploading these documents. So the documents that we're going to need on there are your business plan, your cash flows. If you are an existing business, the last 2 years of profit and loss statements, your most recent quarterly balance sheet, and your last 2 years of business federal tax returns. For anybody who owns 20% or more of the business, we're going to need to see 2 years of personal tax returns, 3 months of personal bank accounts. We're also going to need to see those 3 months of corporate bank accounts if it's been around for 3 months. We're going to want to see proof that your loan was turned down by another lender. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to have gone through the whole process. If you're talking to your banker and they're saying, we don't do startups, this isn't right in Maryland Capital Enterprises, might be right for you, that's good. Well, also, there are some things that you can add that aren't required but tend to be great. So reference letters. If you're opening up a salon and you're renting a chair somewhere else, and you've got 30 letters from customers that say that as soon as you open up your doors, they're going to get services with you, that's going to look good. We're going to want to see your resumes if you have, if you can. Also, other attachments might be leases, LOIs, estimates, contracts, licenses, marketing materials, anything that's going to tell the story for your business. So all that's going on the business loan application. And then the third thing is your personal information supplement. This is filled out by everybody who owns 20% of the business. And this is where you're talking about your personal, your assets, your liabilities, your work history, your monthly expenses. On this, you're going to need to upload a copy of your driver's license. So through those, we will get those, and then we will take a look at them. And the application, if you get it in by the first Friday of the month, and sometimes, when the first Friday is the first, second or so, we can extend that out a little bit, will be reviewed by the end of the month. It's during the 4th week of the month that it's reviewed. So a staff member will get all of your paperwork. They'll make sure that everything is complete. They'll let you know any questions or any follow-up. Any questions we think the loan committee might come up with, we'll help you develop answers for. And then we actually go in front of the loan committee, not you guys, and we make your case and hopefully get your loan funded. If it's a yes, we're going to let you know right away. We'll get you a commitment letter, and generally we're looking at 3 to 4 weeks for funding from approval. One thing that's important to understand is if you're using real estate as collateral, we are going to need an appraisal that is 12 months old or newer. That doesn't mean go get it before your loan is approved. Once your loan is approved, that's when you should start getting that appraisal. But that's just something I like to let folks know. So I'm going to be wrapping up in just a few moments, but I like to end all of my sessions with a few slides here. The first one is, like I said before, there is nowhere in the country with more small business resources than the Maryland area. So, but most of the libraries will have a business center. Of course, we're here to help you out. Your local economic development organizations, those can be government or nonprofit. Talk to your local chamber. There's locality based. There's the African American chamber. There's the Latino chamber. So you can be involved in more than one. Keep an eye on that Maryland Department of Commerce. When there are grants, oftentimes they're going to come out through them. The Maryland Small Business Development Center, that's done by the SBA. They offer free counseling services. They can also help with business plans and things like that. SCORE is the Senior Corps of Retired Executives. It's also an SBA program where you might be able to get a mentor in your field to help you grow your business. Also, universities are a great place for small businesses to get resources. They often have business centers or women's business centers, collaborations with CDFIs, pitch competitions, or oftentimes there are classes that are looking to do projects for small businesses. So even if you didn't go to the university and you have no attachment to them, talk to them. There might be some resources for you. And then also you want to, talk to your local business organizations. If you're in a historic Main Street, there are lots of advantages. Talk to your Main Street manager. You want to talk to the SBDC, or if you're in Baltimore City, the Small Business Resource Center that's part of the city. So, talk to everybody, ask us all the same questions. We all have different experiences and we'll all help you shape your business. The next thing is the 5 things to remember before applying for business capital. Number 1, don't quit your day job, right? You want to make sure that you're able to get income in as you're growing your business, because we want to make sure also that you have got income so that you can pay back that loan. Number 2, unless you are an accountant, and honestly, even if you are an accountant, you need an accountant. I come from the restaurant world, and we would say when it gets busy, we're in the weeds. Well, when you're starting a business, you're going to be in the weeds. And if you have an accountant looking over your books, they're going to, like I said, ensure that you're not missing any deadlines, ensure that you're in good standing, and then also ensure that your cash flows are being met. The next thing is, of course, the ask for help, right? So you're already doing it. We've gone over that a number of times. Just keep asking, get all of this free help. Number 4, keep your money in the bank. When you are applying for a loan, it's not the time to go buying cars, opening up credit cards, buying houses, because all of those credit checks and all those things might mess a little bit up with your credit. Also, no business is an island. People go to small businesses because small businesses are a part of the community. So a way to help them understand that is to give to local charities, support that local softball team, join your chamber, your Rotary, your Main Street, all of those things. You want to, give to charities that, everybody can get behind, kids, pets, military, food banks, things like that. That way your community will see you as not just a business, but as a strong member of the community. And before I wrap it up, this is just a few webinars that are coming up. We've got one-on-one personalized business consulting tomorrow. We've got the business plan and cash flows on the 28th. Another big one is part 1 of our MBE, DBE, SBE workshop on June 17th. There's also another one a few weeks later that will help you get your minority, your woman, your disabled, your small business enterprise certifications, so you're eligible for more government workshops. Oops, that always happens. So with that, this is the contact for the Baltimore office. I'm Nick Rudolph. I'm the Baltimore Regional Director. We also have Miri Zen, who is our Baltimore Women's Business Center Coordinator. Both of our emails are on there. I'll also put them in the chat. But with that, I'd like to open it up and see if there are any questions. And first, I'll go into the chat. Awesome. Thank you, Tanya. Any questions at all? All right. Well, it looks like you might get a couple of minutes of daylight then. I always think of my best questions once these things end. So if you think of any questions, feel free to email me. Contact us through the Get Started Here button on our website, and we'll be able to help you personally with your business. And then with that, if there aren't any more questions, I'll go ahead and stop sharing and say I hope you all have a great rest of your day. We look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.